young brahmachari at that time. So I was very proud and arrogant more than that. And he always was pushing us, to do things. I remember once we were in Mayapur, and a big, tall German devotee, disciple of Harikesh Swami at that time, was there. So he was a martial arts expert, and he was also a swimmer. He was very smooth. He's tall. So he was showing off, and some of us, we were there in the Ganges, and then he started swimming. And then you could see Guru Maharaj is he's like a child. He likes competing, he likes playing, he's very like that. So he looked around and he said, "You're a swimmer." I could see it coming. And then he called her, "Hey." Says, "I dare you, swim with him, raise him." So he said, he was like an Olympian or something else, drowning already. But he's very playful in that, so that's his move. And what I was saying is that some of us, we have met Guru Maharaj for a few years now, but his personality doesn't change. He has all these issues, all these health problems, but his personality is always exactly the same, or even worse. The nurses this time, they were coming in, and one nurse came. Where was she from? Kerala. Many of them are from Kerala. So he will say a few words, and he will say thank you, and but he had this thing that he gets people. He knows how to get people. He's very expert. So she came early in the morning, and he said, "Have you eaten onions?" So she felt a little, "No, Swamiji, actually, I haven't eaten onions because I haven't had my food or something." I'm not saying what he said, but I'm just telling you that eating onions is not good for you. And she was like, yes, Swamiji, yes. Okay. And then she was doing the thing and stuff. Actually, Swamiji, why? Why is it that you say that eating onions is not good? And then he said, because it makes you angry. And then she says, actually, I'm going to tell my husband this. Because lately we have been having some arguments. They're always laughing. But you could tell that by the way that he approaches people just become enchanted with his personality. And then later she was coming. This is the second day that I was there. By the third day, because they rotate the shifts. One afternoon I was there, Bhakti Krishna Swami had come, and they were discussing some things. We were outside the Mahabharata and Sachi Kumar. And so I heard Shamrasa sort of laughing, So what happened is that after that finished, so I went in to see what was happening. He was, by that time, this is only 2 days or so, he already had taught her to chant the Mahamantra, right? So she was getting confused. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, like she was like getting confused. So she was trying again and again, and Guru Maharaj was doing some kind of what do you call it? Score, like how many times she could be stage. And anyway, so she was laughing, he was laughing because he already had got her to. In the beginning, they don't even want to know they're Christian or whatever. But he's so expert. So with pretty much everyone that came, he would sort of scan, what do you call those, temperature sense. He can see through and see how much, piety or how much enthusiasm. There was one doctor also. He looks like a bhakta anyway, but he was an assistant of this senior specialist. So he was there in this very big hospital. Anyway, so one night he comes by this time, third night that I was there, they will pay obeisance to the master. The doctor paying obeisance. In the beginning, they all just come. And, we all humble disciples and all that. But the doctor is a doctor. So his personality is respected, especially in India. I noticed. So the nurses, everyone stops, everyone freezes. The doctor comes in, he says a few words, everyone, because this is like a university hospital. So generally he comes with 2 or 3 young doctors, trainees. But one of them, he's not a trainee, he's actually one of the main ones, very young. By the third night I saw him, he was paying obeisance. So Guru Maharaj had instructed us not to pay obeisance because the floor is contaminated. So we all wearing masks and hats and things like that. And I was about to stop him. I just put his hand on his belly. He didn't see it. And I said, okay, I see. So then he's asking blood pressure, how's he feeling, the tapping, that, all these things. And then he said, you see, you come and take care of my body. But I am a spiritual doctor. So I can take care of your spirit, of your soul. And then he's, yes. So, in order to do that, you have to present some questions. So, what is your question? Anyway, he started asking him about Dharma, something like that. Just, how can we know our Dharma? And then he started telling different stories. How the Vedic story about what real Dharma is. He started telling the story of a Brahmin who had a son, and then the son became this, and the Brahmin became that, and the wife became this. And everyone had some karma, but in between the story, there was a Dharma, there was a duty to perform. So he started telling in detail 5 types of sun. I have never heard that. There are 5 types of sun, and he was explaining each type and this and that. And all of a sudden, the hospital room became like a Bhagavatam place. He was telling, he wasn't holding back. I would think, oh, it's just one person, okay, the doctor, okay, fine, the book, or whatever. But he was just going on and on and on. He took his mobile phone, he was recording the Samrasika, came and was recording. So all of a sudden, it's like a big class just for him. Anyway, so that was going on. There was a leader going on. Then eventually he was discharged, so he went to a house in Delhi. And then, because there was some discussion about discharging or not, then he said, when he discussed it with a big doctor, he said, how often do I need to be checked? Right? So the doctor says it's ideal that all your assistants take very care of your blood and different symptoms and different, So if there are some differences, some problems, then we can do something about it. And then we just how he plays. And then he said, he can come. This is the young doctor. He can come and check on me. Right? And then he happy. He said, yes, I can come, Guruji. So what happened is that, in the hospital we were doing Damodar, but very private. And the top doctor had warned us that not many people can be in Guru Maharaj's room at the same time, maximum 1 or 2. So every time we had a code, doctor coming, then he would change his arm, go. So all there, 1.5, 6 of us, go. And everyone would sit out. So the doctor will go with his entourage. So he plays it, all those Guru Maharaj, he knows hospital. Now he's the expert in hospital codes and protocols. So what happens is obviously in the hospital everything is kind of limited. But at home, where he was his job, that's his turf, it's his territory. We have Prashad now, we have the whole thing, although still some, precautions. Still using the mask, people were not allowed to just come in, like that. So then, Dr. Rajiv was there. So the Guru Maharaj instructed him. He said, now in Damodar, every night you have to do this. And he showed him how to do it. So he said, you cannot do it because you're working or something, and you try to go to a temple. So every day when Dr. Rajiv will come, Guru Maharaj will ask, so have you done Damodar? He says, yes, Guruji, I just went to. He says, okay, you can. He says, sometimes it's recommended you do 2 times. Because I have done, I have done. No, you do with me. So what I'm saying is that he's working all the time. When I just arrived in Mayapur this last time, 1 year or so ago, he was asking me so about my service in the congregational ministry. And I said, I also want to keep on serving you, correspondence and all the things. And then he says, how many hours do you keep the office open? And I said, well, some staff is 4.5, some 5, 6 at the most. He says, how many hours do you work in Australia? I said, 8 hours. We have 40 minutes break or whatever. He says, so why? He said, Karmis work so hard. And here, we work so little. And I said, okay, Guru Maharaj, we'll keep the office open, regular hours. He didn't say much. And then, but during those days, I was discussing with him regarding the office, work conditions, and conditions. And then I was mentioning about holidays. And I said, Guru Maharaj also we were discussing about holidays in the office. He says, why holidays? I said, well, everybody needs some holidays. He says, JPS has no holidays. I'm all the time working. All the time. But you see, all the time I'm working. I don't stop. When there is a day when JPS is in JPS, when there is a time that JPS has any holidays, has a break. And I said, no, I'm not working. No, we cannot. Anyway, he told me, don't say this. To the staff. Anyway, that's one of the years. So anyway, my point is that although Guru Maharaj is there, I could see that he's doing his job. He's doing his preaching. He's doing, just recently there was an update on Facebook from Shamrasa, I think, about a couple of people taking aspiring disciples. And this house that he's staying, this is Chinta Prabhu's parents-in-law. It is a very traditional Indian way of doing things. So it's a big house, and then there is caretakers, and also there's a Mataji who is Gopal disciple. She's like the pujari, and she cooks. So this family, the caretakers, the husband, the senior person, will come. He takes care of the house, but he's like aloof. So Swamiji is there, he'll come just from the distance. But Guru Maharaj will, every night, a few of us are there, a couple of guests, whoever was there, and he will stop and he will call him, because he speaks English. And then he will say, TK. He doesn't say that. And then, that's very nice. And then he'll ask some things to the wife, then to the daughter. So Damodar started, and then we'll call him. He says, you do, Hindi is available, and you offer that, eat. And he engaged him every night. And then call him again. TK. Every night. And sometimes I'm thinking in my stupid mind, because he stops for everybody. By the time that he's from here to there, you know how it is. It takes 2 hours. how are you? And then, move to the side, move everyone around because it's something private. There was like telling things. And he's like, oh, Mama, what's this about? So many things. Anyway, so he was also working on this family. And so one night they called him and he said, he was sort of preaching what he was translating. And he said, you should change up. He started asking about the hours that they work during the day, what they do. So he was calculating. He said, oh, we have to clean this, we have to do this. And he's like, okay, so from this time to this time, you can chant 4 rounds.
There you go.
So it's like, say, oh, but these, that. They says, I have no time. So the daughter says, what time you go to school? This and that. She's maybe 17 years old or something. It's 18 years. So again, when you come, you do 1 round. You can do 1 round, you can do 4 rounds. Anyway, so I left. So as I said a few days ago, the update on Facebook is that they had taken aspirants already. So like that, he's constantly working, never stops. When I arrived the first time I saw him, so he had this cannula, because they were giving intravenous different things. So he had his hand like this, like standing. So I went, and he says, like, when you do arm wrestling. So he says, like, challenge me. I grab his hand and I say, good morning. He says, I can't because I have the cannula. Otherwise I can't. I will beat you. I was holding his hand. He says, he told me a few things that he wanted to be done. I want to arrange this and that. And then he said, I want to do the Goranga book. So he's working on the Goranga book. He brought Bidonto, he's his parent. He's telling me, I want to do like this and like that. He's telling me the whole thing. Like although I wasn't the one who's going to work on this, but it's just full of enthusiasm. You may say that when you talk, so much energy goes into it, but still he wants to share his enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness. Amazing. I'm thinking, why is he telling me this? He doesn't have to tell me this. He can tell that to Mama or Ekana or Chinta. He will arrange. But he's telling me this, and I'm thinking, yes, Guru Maharaj, we will arrange everything. But then I realize he's, whether consciously or naturally, automatically, he's just sharing his enthusiasm to do more and more service. So now I understand Bidonto is there. And, they read to him. He's like, as I say, he's like a big computer. One night, I was taking rest, maybe 11:30. And Siamrasika Prabhu comes and he says, where's Guru Maharaj's iPad? And Maharaj lent me the iPad because I didn't have a computer, so I was doing some work. He said, it's in my backpack. So he went and took it. So I asked him the next day, so what happened? Why was, the Guru Maharaj want something? And he said, yeah, he asked me to read for him. And I went like almost in one reading. You think that by 11 he's supposed to be sleeping, but sometimes he gets into this sort of like trance. And he's just laying there, and he has his clicker, so he's click. And then someone is reading, and you think, okay, because I've done that service too. And then you think, okay, I'm going to lower my voice and then just sneak out. He says, why are you stopping? Repeat that part. And why does Krishna say so? I remember once in Mayapur, a few months ago, we came early, 6 or something, to see him. We were reporting him something, but anyway, we came in. And then he says, hey, Prabhupada,